Well, I wasn't going to ask this question about evolution, and partially because it just has seemed so natural and normal to me in my whole life to see that there is no conflict between the evolutionary perspective and the Bible and a
Mhm.
belief in God. To me, I've never had a hard time reconciling them. I have a hard time understanding why anyone thinks that this is a big deal.
Mhm.
But if you would want to summarize in a nutshell your perspective on this, why you
Mhm.
believe, evolution is true, that to whatever degree that you say that, young Earth creationism is incorrect, how would you summarize your position on that?
Well, you know, it's one that I've always held as a scientist. The data is so strong for an old Earth and for evolution that there really is very little that goes against it that's reliable and useful. Um, I think that, but that's kind of trivial. What really counts is evolution anti-biblical?
Mm-hmm.
That's the real question. It's not a scientific question. There are very few scientists who are, unless they're motivated by a specific biblical interpretation, who would dispute evolution or the old Earth.
Right.
But so it's a theological question, and it's a valid question theologically.
Yeah.
Could the Bible be wrong?
Hmm.
I don't see anything in the Bible that makes evolution impossible. And I have several colleagues, one in particular who's a PhD in evolutionary biology and a PhD in theology. He's a Christian, quite well known. His name is Dennis Lamoureux, and he's written some books. And he has a great explanation of how, it's not a question of giving up your biblical faith or giving up. It's a question of biblical interpretation. Now, when I hear people like Kent Hovind or other young Earth creationists say, well, the Bible is very clear. Here's what it says. I like to say, well, wait a minute. You're interpreting the Bible as much as I am.
Right. Yes.
And if you look at Answers in Genesis, which claims to be, the plain truth of the Bible, and you look at their explanations of questions that people raise, like who were the other people that Cain ran into when he left,
Right.
when he was
Great question.
running away, they give an answer, but it's an interpretive answer. And in fact, the 6,000 years of the young Earth is nowhere in the Bible. That's an interpretation originally by our originator of Seventh-day Adventism, who decided that the Bible is literally true in this particular portion, not in everything else. So this whole idea of young Earth creation is a very new thing in Christianity. It's not traditional at all. And it's based on a particular biblical interpretation, which it's okay I don't have any objection. If you would like to believe that, that's fine with me. It's a theological choice. I interpret the Bible differently, and so do many other, and so does the Catholic Church,
right,
who I believe are Christians. And so do the majority of mainline Protestant denominations. So I'm not alone in this, nor are my colleagues who are scientists. It's perfectly within Christian tradition to accept, scientific truth and to use it as you interpret the Bible according to, your own theological views. So I don't know if that's a nutshell exactly, but I think
so.
I think it's an argument that is not worth having.
Yeah.
It's a theological argument, and we can argue all kinds of things in theology. The science is very clear. And why bother putting yourself out on this limb of being anti-science when it's not necessary?
Right. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with our worship of Jesus Christ. It has nothing to do with our following the Bible, even the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Genesis 1, John Walton is the first name that always comes to mind when you're talking about what does Genesis 1 mean. And he has a great explanation of it. And so do many other theologians. And I am not a theologian, so I won't even try. But, the answers are there. And so I think we should get past it.
Yeah, I really appreciate your perspective. I think it's a great summary of the issue and the non-issue
Hmm.
here. You know, really, like you said, it's an issue of biblical interpretation. And one of the things that I think is important to me when it comes to this actually kind of dovetails into my question about the state of Christianity, modern Christianity, is I think that it does the church a disservice that this becomes an issue.
Hmm. I agree.
It becomes a point of contention for people who are scientifically minded. If they feel that they have to reject
Yes,
what science has come
absolutely
up
right.
with in its study of creation, if they feel like they have to throw that out or dismiss that in order to be a believer, that is a pretty strong discouragement
Absolutely.
of a lot of people. And I just
Absolutely.
don't think that we should be doing that.
Yeah, every day I see a tweet or a post of some ex-Christian who said, "I grew up in the church, but I came to understand the reality of evolution, and now I'm no longer a Christian," and that drives me crazy,
Yeah.
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And I should say one other thing, by the way, about evolution, and that is a lot of people don't understand what it actually says.
Hmm.
It says very little compared to what people think it says. It says nothing about cosmology. It says nothing about the origin of life. It says nothing about the human soul or the origin of the human soul. And uh, if we, so when we talk about evolution, we should be very careful that we define it correctly, which is
Yes.
basically, I would define it as God's tool for creating diversity of life.
Great. That's wonderful.